So I told you about the people of Crete. I hate to say Cretans almost because, you know, a Cretan is a not very smart person, but it's spelled differently. And what else am I going to say? The people of Crete. But there was also another huge influence on the gods of the Greeks besides Egypt and besides Crete. Now, whenever I say that there is an influence, these are all interrelated. I keep stressing that each set of myth is revisionist. Even Egyptian and Sumerian myth was revisionist myth because people existed before they did. Yeah, they did. It's just that they didn't have writing and they didn't record their myth. The myth of Osiris, by the time it got around to the Egyptians, it was ancient even then. So when I say these influences came up, they were all intertwined as it may be. But the other big influence on Greek myth was that of the Pelasgians. Now, I've talked about the Pelasgians off and on and written about them and had them in PowerPoints, and I keep talking about Eurynome. I'm so transparent. You know who my favorite deities are, and Eurynome certainly is one. By the way, her name means far wandering, and my nickname Gwendolyn means the wanderer. So yeah, I feel real connected to Eurynome. But the Pelasgians is kind of a general name, as you will see in the PowerPoint, that's applied to several peoples. But the people that we are going to be talking about are the people that lived in that area that was later called Greece. Now, the Pelasgians lived there for quite some time, and according to Robert Graves, they were matriarchal, at least matrifocal. He says matriarchal. And he says this of most of Europe, that it was matriarchal, and they worshipped the Magna Mater, and the idea of the god was, what's the word? I don't want to say, he was not important as the goddess. There, I said it. We don't know. We weren't there. None of you invented that time machine yet. But at any rate, within Greece, Graves says that there was a matriarchal society, an agrarian society, fairly peaceful for a long time. And their gods were the Titans. And within the realm of the Titans in Pelasgia, it was the female goddesses that were the most important. Again, those Magna Maters. That continued on for however long. And Charlene Spretnak in Lost Goddesses of Early Greece, gives some versions of what she thinks, she won't give her sources, of what she thinks those early goddesses were like. At that point, Hera was not the wife of anybody, and certainly not of Zeus, because Zeus had not been heard of. And these goddesses were very strong images in their own rights. That all changed later, when the Aryans came into that area. Now, the Aryans, the most widely accepted theory about them now is that they came from the steppes of Russia. And they made a big sweep, and they came down through Persia, which is now Iran, into India, and into Greece and beyond. The Greeks were patriarchal. They didn't have a written form of language, but there are many scholars who claim that the Vedas, the holy books of the Hindus in India, were originally Aryan. Would have been passed down word of mouth orally until writing was developed in India, and they would have written it down. One of my other favorite deities, I don't know if he's my favorite deity, but he interested me, Mithra, was originally Aryan, not only in India, where he was known as Mitra, but also in Persia, where he was Mithra, and then was later adopted by the Romans. So the Aryans came into this area, Pelasgia, and they had a war, as the ancients often do, and as we still often do. And the Aryans beat the Pelasgians. And so the patriarchy was established, and the matriarchy was done away with. Now, Graves says, before the Aryans came in, that the Pelasgians, in their matriarchal government, had a queen, and they also had a king. But unfortunately for the king, every 7 years, the reigning king was taken out into the fields, had his throat cut, and his blood allowed to drip on the earth. Why? He was a corn king. He was the fertilizer of the earth. He would have been a young man, because you don't want an old man's blood shed on the earth, because he wouldn't have been as virile as a young man. And corn kings are quite a bit like dying and resurrected deities who represent the seasons and who die for the betterment of their people, because that's what the corn kings were doing. Arthur's a corn king. We have many other corn kings. But at any rate, in this matriarchal system, the king would be taken out every 7 years, and he would be, sacrificed in order that the land be fertile.